Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Lucas On podcast. Today is a very special episode with the world's first living work of art. New Zealand icon, definitely an icon for Christchurch, I'll tell you that. The Wizard of New Zealand. I first heard about him when I was basically a little kid. My parents told me all the stories and all the kind of the mischief that he'd got up to over the years every time he had made the news cycle, and it always kind of seemed like like something that wasn't real. You know, how could this possibly be a real person? How could this possibly be a real thing? But then when I was younger, moved up to Christchurch and saw him in the flesh in Cathedral Square. Just an absolute icon for Christchurch, for New Zealand, and a warrior for free speech as well. I think a classic example of why free speech is needed and all the kind of crazy, ridiculous things that you can do with it for good reason. I was a little intimidated coming into this episode. Nervous. I think you'll probably be able to tell in the way that I kind of conducted myself and how I asked questions. But I thought it was a really cool opportunity to kind of put a spotlight again on someone who, I heard so much about as a kid and is still, all these years later, still being an icon, still being the wizard. So I really hope you enjoy this episode. We talk about a whole bunch of stuff. Just a quick note for anyone who's watching the video version of this before we begin. I'm still adjusting to the camera gear and kind of the setup and the lighting. I'm not very good at this. So there's some points where it gets quite grainy, quite dark. I tried my best to fix it in post, but we're kind of learning as we go along. So apologies for that, any kind of weird visual stuff that happens. I'm going to get better and the episodes are going to get better. And I really appreciate your support if you're watching the video version. If it's on YouTube or wherever, make sure you like and subscribe and all of that. Enjoy this episode with the Wizard of New Zealand. If you're out somewhere, say the supermarket or, the mall or something like that, you bump into someone, introduce yourself, and they are curious about what you actually do. How do you explain that to them?
Well, not many people do want to know, because when you say you're a wizard, their eyes go funny and they walk away. Or, hey, you're the wizard, I've no idea what are you at? And they get this big thing started. So I've got no criminal record, you see. That's the horror of it all. I'm not insane. I'm never getting any therapy. In fact, one of my double degrees in theoretical psychology. So I can say, do you want to do psychology? I'll analyse you if you like. And they don't like that. Yeah. And the sociologists, most sociologists aren't normal people. They tend to be antisocial. They want to change the world, you see. That's their big aim, to change the world. Yeah. Inevitably, it'll make it worse. Yeah. They can't for a second think that they should listen for a long time, study things carefully before they do anything so absurd as change the world. So I changed the world by turning it upside down, south up. So is that a change? No, it is. You tell me if it's south up or north up. And if you don't know, how are you going to find out? And you get all these wonderful questions. Then you hold that to all sorts of areas of philosophy and ideas. So I play with ideology. That's why I called the title of my book, Jack's Adventures in Ideology Land. Because I admire Lewis Carroll enormously, extremely clever, made lots of wonderful jokes which most would understand, on the meaning of words, on mathematics and so on. And he also wanted to teach, he realised that young girls can be great inspiration. If they're listening to you and you watch their eyes, you can get some big results, because basically males love to show off to impress females. Yeah. So if you've got a bright young woman, she could be teenager or later, who's following your latest boasts and brags and theories, it inspires you to go further. So women act as an inspiration, and therefore Lewis Carroll was doing that. It's inspired, and Alice as a character is the first one I come across since the Middle Ages where a woman is actually not intimidated, where she doesn't care, just copes what comes next, and the next thing, next adventure, doesn't sort of make out she's threatened. It's how curious and curious and curious. So Alice is an example, I think, of what I call a postmodern woman. And Lewis Carroll was looking into the future in many ways. And when his idea of adventures in Wonderland, now that land is explored fully, but who has explored ideology land? There are so many ideologies, but they can be grouped into ones based on fertility and immortality, very common. Or those based on skill in selling stuff, buying stuff, and trading in the markets, which denies the importance of religion. It doesn't matter what religion you are, a deal's a deal, money's the same. But if religion was important, you wouldn't do trade with someone different religions because they're evil. So you see that money overrules religion quite early on in the 12th, 13th century, I think, in Europe. And then you get the idea that, in fact, what's important is to accumulate as much stuff as you can to look good. And this is the materialistic phase which science deals with. Science will tell you exactly how important matter is. So medicine is entirely material. The body's a machine, you've got a pump here and that there. The idea of having a soul never occurs to them. I mean, it occurred to Jesus and Socrates, but not to their scientists. For goodness sake, they're better than that. They've grown beyond Jesus and Socrates, these guys are really and they're looking for the memory of the brain. No, their memory will be, it's a pattern, isn't a memory anywhere. In fact, they say, matter is real. No, it's not. It's just a lucky chance that these things these little orbits of particles happen to go in such a complex pattern that they make it solid. But solid matter is, in fact, just a series of random movements, or not entirely random. But, so the whole idea that this is real, it's not going to work anymore. And that's what Einstein broke out of that. Very important. He realised that there are what you might call vibes instead. And that's why the hippies were inspired, partly by Einstein, I think, because he solved incredible problems, had no idea what to make of what was going on. And he was the only one who could see through it, because he used to sit and think and not do anything else for hours on end, like I do. Sit and daydream, don't do anything, but don't write articles in magazines, God. Publish or perish. So he'd sit in his office and he'd go, and then does that one. He didn't even very good at maths. He had friends who was maths for him, but altogether, these sort of people are outside. I'm one of those. Something is odd about me. Wherever I go, strange things happen around me. I can't do anything about it. I don't believe in destiny. All I know is that I'm accident prone, but not to harm myself, but to disrupt the narrative wherever I go. That's how I started the Fun Revolution at university. When a university appoints an official wizard, you've broken something so basic, because universities emerged from the alchemists and the astrologers and numerologists of the underground, and they came overground bit by bit. As religion weakened, they got more and more free to experiment. And by the 16th century, 15th century, like Roger Bacon, they were monks and they were scientists, and natural philosophers actually. And so they made it possible to say that a person could be a religious person and still experiment with material phenomena. And then they cut the religious part out, checked out all the classical philosophy, and went for pure materialism, deconstructing every blooming thing down to the fact we're now at a stage where if you believe you're fat and you're skinny as a rake, you are fat. Or if you believe you're a woman and you look a man to me, you are a woman, because they've now moved into a subjective reality. They've lost trust in what's out there, and they go into this fantasy world, which is really frightening. Ideologies. You can kill people so easily, murder them, just because you've got the right ideology. Like the awful things happening in the Middle East right now. Incredible stuff, because they know if they can torture people and cut their heads off and impale babies and cook in the ovens, they're going to go to heaven. And when they get there, wine and women, it'll be a wonderful time. These young men are stupid, of course. They believe what they're told, but the old bearded guys don't go out and die. They stand in the back and send them up to like Iran and Iraq. So these poor young men are completely crazed with beliefs that they're going to lay down their lives for the sake of Allah. But when they get up there, they might find a fat old Fatima and no wine. Wouldn't it be terrible? What can they do? They can't come back down again and say they've been cheated. That's why it's handy to promise things after death. You never found out.
I find that really interesting. Something that you mentioned in there is kind of this motivation, this masculine motivation that people, that men feel towards wanting to impress, I guess, the feminine energy per se. As you said, a lot of...
We're the control system, they're the feedback system.
Yeah.
If they give you proper feedback, you learn. If they say, oh, God, what a wanker, and walk away. So you've got to be there. And the feedback is mainly visual, not to say much. You have to look at their eyes. And I do that if I go in the square every day to watch what happened. I'd explain how women run the world, because I can give a very good theory that women actually run the world because they control the babies, and their sons are the ones who become priests. The ones who don't get on with their mothers become adventurers and warriors. They don't become priests. So the priests are mother's boys. Mother's boys then give the instruction, and men must have babies. Why? Because if you don't have babies, you won't live. Your name won't live on forever. But why should my name live on forever? And then you have these awkward questions. So if you want to be immortal, you have a child with your blood and your veins and your genes, and you get a name up in the churches, and you go be in heaven or purgatory. So this immortality cult is very strong, and that's how they first got control. Because hunter-gatherers, men did not have babies. They made it quite clear they didn't. Women had babies. And where did they come from? Well, first of all, sex is not the cause of babies. Sex is sex is sex is sex. You keep it as something that's particularly important. And if you go wrong, it's disastrously terrible. But babies, they say, well, we don't know. Maybe some little spirit comes in from outside, and like Jesus, a little zygote gets formed that grows inside you. Now, all these things are useful fictions because we cannot get to the truth. We can have a working hypothesis, a useful fiction, like, well, let's assume that sex causes babies. If we control the women, we can have the babies. But if they say no, it doesn't control babies, it's up to these various events taking place. Maybe there's a connection, maybe not. But if sex is then seen as a means to an end, then you can argue post hoc, like Darwin's theory. You can't predict anything from Darwin's theory. So what sort of theory is that? You look what happens at we can explain that. No, can you give us a hint of what comes after this?
Yeah.
Now, in the physics, you can do that. Mainly in the physical sciences, most of them can be reversed. You can go backwards and forwards and back. But once a chemical reaction's taken place, you can't go backwards. You can't undo a chemical reaction. So time travel is a farce. It's ridiculous. It's very funny, but it's good for a joke, but it's not possible anyway. And also, if people want to travel forward into some wonderful future, I'm not interested in the future. What interests me is the present. And the past is where you made your mistakes. But I want to go that way. I do not want to go there. I want to go up. Now, how do you get up? You get high, as often as you can. And that's done by making jokes, having fun, upsetting serious people, telling stories, and, of course, jumping a lot. I used to jump a lot when I was younger, because I'd love to jump in the air and keep going. That's my dream. And so many children dream that too. Now, if that's a dream, is that coming from the brain itself? Did human beings actually do that before agriculture, when the shamans show their drums and the heaven, when they believed they went up there and came down again? But all I know is I'd rather go that way than forward or backwards.
Yeah, I have always kind of felt that the want to travel forward and kind of exist in the future and see what the future like does. It seems quite like a selfish need. To be famous, you see. Then you can be famous. Now that's the worst thing can happen to anybody. Yeah. Look at the people. Those musical stars. Yeah.
They became famous. If they survived, they're very lucky. It's terrible.
There's a really interesting quote from your book where you talk about instructing your apprentices. You say, they must therefore obey my last will and testament, which was that for me to vanish in every way, they must devote their lives to destroying all records that I ever existed. It kind of touching on the point, why would you want to?
If you believe in nothing, you shouldn't want to be remembered, should you? What's the point? Oh, I'll be remembered. Oh, come on. Ego again. That bloody ego. You make a fool of yourself is what you can do.
Yeah.
And also try and get this thing. But imagine my poor follower. I mean, they're all just simple guys. They like my stuff. The master says, here we go. Just we love the master. You're just, oh, shit. But in doing so, they'll become famous. Why are you destroying your own master's name? He told us to. I never saw that before, have they? That's one of my original thoughts.
Yeah, no, it's a good thought. And I guess the kind of the question that comes from that for me is, would it be in your wishes that this episode currently that we're filming would get deleted after you pass?
Because I haven't vanished, you see.
Because you haven't vanished yet, right.
Listen, I'm still making mistakes by still being here, so obviously I don't mind being learning from my mistakes, but if I made it through, I want to go all the way, just completely dematerialise and go to the next level, which is like the particles, where you just don't know.
Yeah. One of your many antics that I was very interested and excited about reading about in the book and doing some research was the vanishing from the census. Now, a long time ago, I remember my dad telling me about you going out on the boat on census night.
Well, that wasn't vanishing. That was going beyond the legal limit.
Well, I hadn't even heard about the vanishing. I just heard about the
boat.
Funny, yeah. So can you tell me about that?
Well, having managed to get out beyond the 12-mile limit to say I wasn't in legal, and they had to give up and admit that it wasn't inside New Zealand's political area, economic zone, but not political zone.
Yeah.
So they couldn't charge me. I had to cancel the case. It went on for years before they finally admitted they were wrong. Didn't pay any compensation out of all the trouble it caused.
Of course not.
But my lawyers enjoyed the case.
Yeah.
I got to the High Court that way. The second case was I simply made a statement to the newspapers and media and government that I was going to vanish at midnight on census night and reappear at 12 hours later when the census was over. Now, it was their job to say I couldn't have vanished or I wasn't there. I could have been out to sea in the boat. I could be anywhere. Someone has to say they saw me. Now, I didn't even see myself, so that's an important part of it. And I'm not going to witness myself against myself anyway. You have to testify against yourself. And I painted stickers, which says, I believe there was a vanished. I've got a few at home, very few left now. And I believe there was a vanished T-shirts.
Yeah.
I believe there was a vanished. Now, what went on like this, they didn't like the government, what they were doing. It's getting worse and worse. And it's so intrusive for these census people asking these impertinent questions. I'm a sociologist. The government needs a ground base for their studies. You need to know how many people, whether male or female, age, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Everything else you can get from random surveys, from all sorts of ways. And now you can put people down, whatever you like on the form. I mean, it's a joke. They've vanished into a confusion now. Whereas I'm steady course all the time. As a sociologist, I know governments need feedback from having to learn to plan their next moves. And I kept saying this, but you're getting all these fake answers too. People are so distrusting of it. They're putting in things like a railway in how to get to work by train from Nelson. Didn't notice it. All these hundreds of people. There's no train in Nelson.
Yeah.
They're fooled them again. Or the Jedi Knights.
The Jedi, yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, the Jedi is a classic, yeah.
They do not need to know belief.
Yeah.
It's like the Inquisition.
Yeah.
In fact, this is not their business at all. This is an ordinary secular state. Now, if you believe in something and you're a member of a church, they have a right to ask you if you believe in it. If you don't, you should leave the church, you know. Obviously, don't mind, the usual thing happens. So that was an example of that vanishing. So I said at the time, I put it in the then I went, disappeared, came back again, and then put in a form in newspapers in North Island and South Island with all the dates. I believe there was a vanish. Sign here, and they signed their name, their address. Thousands and thousands signed these forms.
Wow.
I didn't see him. Did you see him? No, it must have vanished. Now, who else could do that and get away with it?
That's amazing.
There has been no one doing this in Australia, and yet they make out they're the guys who make jokes at the government. They're no good at it. I'm by far the best teaser and practical joker this part of the world has ever seen. But they get all this coverage for the, what do you call them now, these larrikins. Larrikins, these guys are minor, gigantic figure with his hat on. You would have seen me. I go in the square every day and insult women. But I praise feminists. I always praise feminists. Any woman who's so dumb as to copy men is my sort of woman. Fancy working for a living when you can live off a guy. Fancy driving a car and drive you around. Hey, you're stupid. It's all set up for you. What are you going to do is go, the guy goes, oh, I love you, and I marry you. You've got a slave for life. But no. So the feminists I always praise. That's the worst thing you can do, is praise feminists and be scared stiff of the average woman who leaves school early and reads women's magazines and does their hair all night. So the opposite, what can they do? It's like war. I love war. I actually love it. I just don't get hurt. So I've founded an army that spends all its time preparing for war, getting uniforms, and going out to battle with each other, but they have special weapons that are checked by the referee. Now, what war needs are referees, that's all. It's just like rugby, and you better have more fun, because you have mess dinners and medals and singing songs, abusing your enemy, and battles, and halfway through, out comes a lady with a little trolley for a tea break. All that's how to love war.
Yeah.
If you love war, but if you fear war, and become a pacifist, that's when they really start. There's nothing quite so obnoxious as the holy Jews saying, I'm not a violent person like you. You're asking for it. The sadist is drawn towards the masochist, like a magnet. Almost idiots. In Europe, they were saying it was a nice crime, it's not so thing. It's better not to go. But you're going to kill the Jews after a year. He doesn't really mean it. So they went along with him until Sinatra said, I do not believe he's a good guy. He's a bad guy. We've got to deal with him right away. He's almost lost. He's almost taken over Europe. Doesn't matter. Better to keep down fighting than to go. But imagine living under Hitler. My God. And now it's happening in Israel.
Yeah.
They do something appalling, and they've been doing ever since they gave the Arabs the Gaza Strip. The Arabs tried to destroy them. They beat the Arabs back. And they said, come in the Gaza Strip, why you have to do back? Next year, you know, underground shelters, Hamas, financed by the oil revenues from Iraq.
On kind of the topic of war, something you refer to a couple of times in your book is this idea of like artistic war.
Oh, yes, beautiful war. Performance art.
Yeah. I guess, what would your advice be to someone out there who has something that they really believe in, or that they, something that they think is worth fighting an artistic war over?
Artistic war is fine, but you must therefore expect, if you're not popular, you get booed off the stage, don't carry on, stop. So it's a form of showing off. I mean, back to the shamans again. The shaman walks on a razor's edge. He's got both sides, both the logical, the loving side. The hate comes one way, and the attempts to stop it come the other, and you just walk that narrow line. If you join the love crowd, then the logic crowd gets you. If you join the logic crowd, the love crowd gets you, or the hate crowd gets you. So the emotion and reason both have to be listed. You have to transcend them both. That's why I put my cosmology in my book. In that book is the only cosmology that I think has been worked out. It's partly inspired by Todd de Chardin, who was pretty good. In other words, there's no sudden break where the original sin comes into it. But it also leads towards a heavenly convergence. It's not going out, it starts to come in again. And this is in his writings, very inspirational writings. He's not a reductionist, but you use reductionism to check your theory. And you need to check the, maybe let's just look at it fits together. So the whole is always different and superior to the sum of the parts. It's not just the sum of the parts. And that's why I had to have a part at the top, like a hole in the theory, where you go through the hole in the theory, which I call heaven. But the amazing thing was I found the location of heaven. This is extraordinary to happen. Having worked out that the Big Bang was reached by winding back time, until you come to the first signs of radiation, when you say, well, where did it come from? It comes right back to one spot. But there's no reason for it, and it shouldn't have happened. There was no space, there was no time, there was no intention, so it shouldn't have happened. It's completely inexplicable. Outside, okay, fine enough. Now, supposing there's the other thing going up, that they're not just going out, but going up and inward. So you've got, this is Tired Chardin's idea, of tangential energy and radiant energy, where gradually they might come together. So you can look at things getting better and better and better, more and more musical, more artistic, more logical, more mathematically accurate. So you're heading for excellence. in the three things that the Greeks made, and that's all I'm interested in: truth, beauty, and goodness. Not morality that can be higher how great you are. It's about having a set of the rules. It's like a football game. A really good football game, you have to have a very strict set of ethics. It's absolutely, it's a great burly fellows have got to watch every move they make just in case they get a yellow card.
Yeah.
Now that's wonderful to watch that. And also I love sport because it has no meaning. There's no point to it whatsoever except for fun.
Yeah.
And it's so gorgeous, isn't it? How can we spend so much of our time having fun? Hunt together, spend nearly all their time dancing, singing and having fun. Except painting mountains sometimes, diverting rivers, bit of landscaping there. And of course there's a bit of sculpture. And they were some of the best, their paintings are as good as you can do today. People are great. I said, this stuff is, how could they be so right? They weren't monsters at all. But they just didn't believe in immortality. They believed in living in the present. And also, men didn't have babies. They said, women have babies and we have women. Now, women have to, once a woman has a baby, poor kid, but at the age of 7, every male baby has to leave mother, or they'll get swallowed up by her power and end up mother's boys. So you've got to come and join the men. But women don't go near the girl babies and stay with them too. So you get this different system whereby a boy will be full of incredible, powerful testosterone and hormones for the first few years to protect him from being absorbed into the female world. And they're pests. Small boys are truly horrible. There's nothing I say disgusting. Small boys, but they cool off. They get better and better until you find you're a lovely old codger, and you can't be an old codger. Whereas women start off as sweet little heart. They're so lovely and so charming and nice, but they get tougher and tougher until you finally get the archetypal old lady, and they are terrifying. So you see it sort of, these are changes now. This isn't any books, this is all my own stuff I made up. But the idea of finding a woman who will work with you is back to the alchemists again. There was, they could form a unique being, an androgyne. Now it's not a body, it's a relationship. And the male and female in their roles and their meaning systems and in their interaction, sexually and mentally and spiritually, can create a higher being out of the androgyne. So I've been working on since 1971, when I realised that any male who deserts the female, who's fallen in love with them, is doing her terrible damage. It's like a woman having a child and abandoning the child. Something happens to young women who are romantic and sensual if they make this remarkable sexual union with a male. It's very powerful. It may not last forever. It's long enough to bring together the completely opposing forces of yin and yang. So you bring them together, you work on the idea of a constant battle, like a seesaw, up and down. She's running that round, you in this round, and the war never stops. It's the war of the sexes. And that's the real war. The others are just playful games like football. The war didn't matter. I've been going on for such a long time. And all the best humour's based on that. It's hilarious. So we have to keep it fun. And you also, if you never will have one side win or lose. If one side loses, it's all over. They're just gone. They break. Yeah. So that's when you have to stop. And it's very dangerous when it happens, but still, so that's another part of my mind, which is in the cosmology. But I have got love as a dynamic in my cosmos, bios and philia and agape and eros. Love is an expression of identity. Has no purpose. It just can't be helped. Plants grow. Why should I grow? Cats have, well, cats not a good example. Mammals particularly have offspring that they stay with and look after. Amazing. Why? See, but if they didn't, they'd die. That's not the point. How do you explain this particular, what sort of energy is that? And so you say, it's a form of love, and you get to the highest one, agape, then you understand the saints better, and you understand really good men who put up with awful things and don't turn nasty. Animals too can be treated very badly, but they're not affected by it. They recover. And it takes a while for users for cleansing. So this is the dynamic of intentions. Always important, not the combined intentions there. And it's like a field, like an electric field. You've got to charge, and when you get to a certain point, it discharges, and that's the love coming out. Can't be helped. That will affect the environment around it, particularly the one it's aimed at, I presume, and that comes together to produce what I call a system. Now, systems theory is pretty good. Everything comes into a system. Input, output, you get upgrading and downgrading. Really, it's an example of information theory, which is very, very handy and changed my view of things when it turned up in social science, in the structural functional theory, that everything is in some sort of loop of control and feedback. And if the loop gets wrong, the whole thing is out of control. It's happening now. We're being fed a lot of lies on a massive scale, and it's going to cause terrific problems. The best thing to do about it all is to show that you're not affected by it. Mm-hmm. Absolutely no difference. Like, you can even say it's like an idiot. And what, me worry? You know, that's the thing. I'm not worried. Why should you worry? Because it suits something that gets you worried. Right, let's assume that human beings are all equal. I assume that anyway. I've known all my life that some kids are not very confident, not very strong, not very smart, and they're the sheep. Others are confident, strong and smart, and they're the smart sheep. Then you get one or two who are really extraordinary people who are very smart but hide it. They don't want to stand out. And then you get the wolves. Now, the wolves don't know what they're talking about, but they can convince people that they're actually fakers. They're wearing shepherd's clothing. I've come to help you. When you hear those words, was it John Cleese said, run for your lives, the strangest words in language. I'm from the government, I'm here to help you. So helping people isn't possible. You can't help them. You can help yourself and help them at the same time. But if you're doing it for their sake only, there's something gone really dangerously wrong. That's when you become a masochist and your trouble starts.
On the topic of intention, something that I found interesting that you talked about in the book, the idea of the fun revolution. The idea of a revolution mainly for fun, where both means and ends were the same, appealed to me. Success or failure were not the most important thing. I think, we hear a lot about the idea of I think exactly that, like loving the process of something rather than the means to the end.
Process thinking, in fact.
Yeah.
It changed from Marxism to process thinking in the social sciences. Quite a few people went over to that, and they became existentialists in the process. Particularly those who study play and sport and music. They're going to have to. They can't take the materialistic view anymore.
Yeah.
So you're right about that one.
How is that? How do you feel like this has kind of applied to you over your history, of your life? The idea of kind of living and revolting for fun, thinking about this lifetime rather than kind of the ego trip that comes at the end. I've experienced this a lot, learning skills, playing piano, like you kind of learn to love not being good at the song, and then the moment you can play it, it's like, well, I'm going to move on to the next one.
Yes, it's all over the next step.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, one door closed, another one opens up. We keep going. All that. The whole of evolution goes on that process. Certain animals get us so far. Next one takes a bit further, a little bit further, all the time. Some go off in the distance and don't have any consequence. But we are the convergence of certain things going on in the universe. And what I see as unique in us is our sense of humour. Animals don't have a sense of humour, but they like to play. And they chase their tails, and that's why I like to watch the dogs chasing their tails, and the cats get all excited and go up the curtains, their eyes blazing. Yeah. You think, hey, that's a superior animal, but I can't see a cow doing that. No. Or a horse. Horses, it's very sensitive, but they do a bit of rolling on their backs. And now they do run around the paddocks, now I'm misjudging them. But a lot of animals have no sense of play at all. When you get to reptiles, zero. They don't have offspring. And look at the brain. There it is at the back, the reptilian brain. That's about feeding, drinking, fornicating, reproducing, attacking other animals, fight and flight. All the basic stuff is there. Yeah. But then comes the mammalian brain, which is all about empathy and recognition of friends and family and so on. And these things make up a large part of the brain. But then comes the dangerous bit, the frontal lobes. And that's where the theories are, the ideologies. And if they get stuck in there, everything you do is to make it work. What about changing the ideology in your right hemisphere? Oh, what do you mean? Well, it could be wrong, couldn't it? No, of course it can't be wrong. But, because I live my life. But you could be wrong. No. How many woke people do you know who would ever admit they're wrong? And they're doing the most terrible things. Destroying children, wrecking women's lives, becoming obnoxious, cancelling everyone around they don't like, and all done because they want to help you. So that whole thing, there were two hemispheres. A wonderful book on Ian McGilchrist, which was after I wrote this one. It's about these two hemispheres, how they interact. One is instrumental. Like every bird, a bird pecking for a worm will use one eye to look for the word to get the worm. The other one's saying, what's going on around just in case I'm... So half your attention is to your environment, the other half is to the task in hand. Now, if you stop looking around your environment, you get an ideology clunk, and you spend all your time doing things, whether you like it or not, and they become really active and busy and destructive. And they can't learn. They can't learn. You do the same mistake. That's what Einstein was saying. You can't solve a problem unless you look at it in different terms to the one that caused it. That's right. I'm playing four-dimensional chess. There are four dimensions in my theories, all of them. Einstein played three-dimensional chess. He lacked the upper levels of psychology and sociology and philosophy, but he did have a playful mind like Richard Feynman, another one of these playful people. And so he could concentrate on a picture which is nothing like those of a two-dimensional player of chess. He's seeing another line going, and even Donald Trump shows signs of spotting a deal. I don't know how he does it. And he said he can hardly pronounce a sentence properly, but he's playing a game that's so smart, he keeps ending up doing the right thing, but no one knows how he does it. Peace accords, let's get the economy going again, and everybody hates him so much. Which I think is half the thing. They're picking up something there that's alien and they don't like it. And I think that's in me the same thing. I think pick up something about me that's alien and it scares them. So I'm the funniest guy and says, no criminal record. Who'll ever harm? But the point is, it's that different thing that scares them. That's probably why no one will invite me to speak anywhere. Why I'm not allowed to go, the square is wrecked and they're happy, they don't seem to mind. I get no about at the Arts Centre. Look, I get all these things, young kids, all these plans for you to battle. How about the Imperial Army cover? How about more wizards? How about talks on the meaning of life and new cosmology? Now, in the 1970s, I could do that. They were happy to have me talk to them. And I even put a lecture series on cosmology at that time. This is in my book. That was there. So look, what I'm going to do is argue against it.
Yeah.
Here's the books, here's my theory. Now, just falsify actually, would you? Now, if I don't do that, what am I going to do? I don't know if it's true or false. I have no idea how it is, because no one will even discuss it.
Why, that's the point of it being a theory, right? To be tested, to be...
So what am I going to do about it? No, I'll bluff my way through it. I'm bluffing. Right now I'm bluffing. I know their stuff is worse than mine. They decide to go against me, and I give them heaven in exchange for... Right, I'll accept the Big Bang if you accept heaven. Both are cosmic centres of the universe. One is going towards being dragged down, and everything else is being drawn up the other one. So you've got one pull this way, one pull that way. It makes sense of much things. But the idea of believing in heaven would drive them crazy. Like I've got ideas how to bring the Jews into our world by pointing out that the British, by a series of remarkable events and long history, their royal families inherited the bloodline from David. So he claimed him as a Dutch. Now, this stuff is completely chaotic. It's a useful fiction most of the time. But if you choose to believe them, you could then come together with Christians, the Anglican Church only, of course, no other Christians. They've got to join the Anglicans to do this. You've got to have a sense of humour, and you've got to have a royal family that isn't, all full of rituals and stuff, but it just go for the motions, saying, I don't know why I'm doing this, but it's my role, I'll do it. They don't take themselves too seriously. And then we could bring up a new combined religion, the Second Covenant, because the Jewish religion is a very important one for two reasons. One, it's social. You don't do that to get personal salvation. You don't do it. I'm saved. Why do I think all the time? It's the people that count. And if your deeds protect your people, you're a hero. And also, you can't see God in any form. And another thing is, of course, is that there is no heaven or hell. So it doesn't matter. It's here And that would be a correction for Christianity, because Jesus was a Jew after all, even though I don't know quite how much of it you believe, but it makes a very good set of parables saying that. Now, we need the Jews on our side. They're smart. They've got this wonderful history of talent, which is incredible. And they do very good things and very bad things. So, but because you will do if you're talented. So that would be a unification, which would then, we can then sort the world out according to a very simple set of rules about forgiving your enemies, the idea of no race doesn't count, and all these other things. And what does matter is forgiveness. And this means, then we hit the big one, and this is really skipped in my book, of course. We cancel all debts. Can you imagine what would happen? Not currencies, you need them, cigarettes in prisoner of war camps, but cancelling debts. So what is economic debt? It's saying the present isn't real, but the future is. That's when you get your profit.
Yeah.
So we start by living in the future and making a mess of the present.
Yeah.
But can you imagine holding a jubilee year? You used to hold jubilee years. That would be a real. Who else is radical enough to want to cancel all debts?
only the wizard, huh?
That's going to be a good one. But in the process, if you forgive people what they owe you, you'll be forgiven what you owe to them. But usually it's one way only. They'll be forgiven. They're not going to be they can't pay 50-50. Only if you accept the fact that you've been forgiven by those that you owe debt to, can you forgive others and vice versa. It has to be reciprocal, like rights and obligations. There are no human rights without obligations, but no one lists the obligations. What are my rights? What are your obligations? What are they?
Yeah. You talk a lot in your book, and you just mentioned it there, the idea of like useful fictions. I was curious, kind of, what do you feel like are your personal useful fictions that you tell yourself that you believe that has led you to have kind of the ideas and be parts of the movements that you've been a part of?
I can't believe anything. This is terrible.
Yeah.
So I have to say, well, I'll drive left-hand side of the road. It's useful fiction. I'll believe the earth is south up. Useful fiction. I'll go to south up. No, you choose your useful fiction. We cannot live without useful fictions because they're artistic. They have real effects. They work in real time. If you go along left, drive on the left here, drive on the right there. If you stick to this particular fiction, you'll be all right. So fictions work. Now, this is an idea came a long time ago, and I picked it up as a way out. We're not paralysed by moral relativity. Relativity could paralyse everybody. But if you use useful fiction theory, you can get out of you can escape the trap of moral relativity.
Is the wizard as a show, as a character, as a part that you play in the world, do you consider that a useful fiction?
Oh, yes. Yeah. That's how we did it in the first place. At university, I sat down with the Vice Chancellor and said, look, I've got an idea here. I like the part of a wizard, and you back it up, blah, blah, blah. But before I do, I wanted the students to have a say in it. So I put out this document. Now, they all thought this is going to be a trick, or I was mad. So it says, the wizard is a stooge of the Vice Chancellor, or the Vice Chancellor stooge of the wizard. That's more likely because no one else is doing it. Anywhere else in the world looks like I'm the one behind the plot. And they said things like, the wizard is a fool, or take this one, the wizard's making fools of us all. The wizard was fired for being incompetent. The wizard was fired because he was too confident. I was doing some stuff that really they didn't like to hear. In my thesis, I had the best results in the department. I was the first academic sociologist of this coming into Australia. The guy who was in charge of the department knew no sociology. He was about a political scientist, a Marxist, a Jew who'd come from a kibbutzim. Now you can see that a kibbutzim who hates the family. Well, no mother, no, don't believe in motherhood, no, can't have that, no, got to be equal here, no motherhood. It's like Plato's Republic. I when I was a teenager, I admired it. I thought, well, we can really run the world this way. Shit. Denying mothers the love of their children, denying men love for them. It's just absolutely abominable thing to do. But they did it because they're idealists, you see, the idealism. Now, I like idealism as part of the testing ideas out. You've got Bishop Berkeley who says, if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to see it, did it happen? and say, "Oh, something no one that's," and they're stuck. Or you can say, "The universe is entirely material phenomenon. There's no God, there's no will in it, there's no power. It's just random events and patterns." And you say, "Well, look, you can have a theory. Now, a theory isn't true or false. A theory isn't a material thing. It's a useful fiction again.
Yeah.
How can you do anything without useful fiction about carving a bit of wood? Anything." And that's where Aristotle is very good, generally, on the types of cause.
Yeah.
So all the way along the line, the idea of useful, trouble is useful to who? Now, the fictions coming out of the World Economic Forum are devastatingly dangerous. The man's a bloody wizard, and he's got all these algorithms going out, and he's destroying everything that's important on the planet. He's not just doing it because he's wrong, he's doing it because he hates. He's actually he's a Nazi type, and he's doing it. And they go there in their vast numbers, they gather around him, and they all admire him, and he's a thicko. He's as thick as a brick, but he's got this incredible presence. He looks in the eyes like Hitler. Not really smart, but God, he had the eyes, and he has the gospel approach. But somebody looks too much like Davros from the Doctor Who series. He just looks exactly like Davros.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and also the Daleks are like his followers. I mean, his young youth leaders are so thick.
Yeah.
It's either true or false. They have to ring up master, so they can't say, "Let's do a compromise." You're either going to take the jab, or you're going to be locked up. There's no sort of, maybe some people shouldn't have the jab, or maybe there's no consultation. The sea levels are rising. Well, it doesn't look like it here. Some places they might be, but it's the ice cap. Yeah, look at the overall. There are about 6 cycles going on, and if you look at them, they all cancel each other out. So the whole thing is based on a very limited amount of information. Garbage in, garbage out. So they won't listen. But the best people like that have a long-term geological changes. They look at about thousands of years. So this problem with useful fiction. It suits them to have that belief. Now, he believes that he is essentially saving the world by bringing in compassion into what was previously business practices. Now, business practices, the trade unions were formed by the Christians, all Christians, because they're good people, Christians generally, to protect the workers from completely being really torn apart by these greedy bosses, like Dickens describes. But the trade unions managed to form enough social credibility that they can modify conditions, and they began to improve the conditions. And then Marx had predicted the conditions would get worse and worse and worse. So he had to alter his theories. He altered his quotes in the Blue Book. He changed the facts, just like they do with the climate changes. They're changing the temperature figures recorded in various places. They're altering all of they're fixing the data so they can prove their theory, as Marxists do. But still, the working class would rather be middle class and have a TV and dental care and that sort of stuff than to join the revolution and see what happened in Russia. So they had to change. So, God, this is not going to work. They're getting rich. The workers enjoy it. They're becoming en bourgeoisement, these Marxists use. So what can we do? So they chose something that couldn't be improved: skin colour or gender, mainly skin colour. If we say that skin colour determines your consciousness, there's nothing they can do about it. They are never going to get out of that one. So they use that, and that's neo-Marxism. Skin colour by itself determines your character. Now, I'm a sexist. I do not think females and males have got the same consciousness. They're very different. So I wouldn't apply certain rules to women, which I think would harm them. But as far as I'm concerned, they can do that to me. It doesn't worry me at all, but I couldn't do it without leaving the result. If they cause a lot of trouble, well, they're anybody women. And if you're a mother, women do this. They're the most awful children. Absolute brats. They give them a hell of a time, but mother's always there for them. And that sort of constant source of love is what we all get from our mothers. And that's what you pass on to the women in your life. That's how I see it anyway. It's a tit for tat. And then you've got to have, now what about the shepherd's love for the sheep? Now that's a tricky one because the world is full of fools in shepherd's clothing. Oh, well, I'll become a shepherd in wolf's clothing. I'll become the bad guy, the evil wizard. No one likes wizards. The religious people think wizards are terrible.
Yeah.
And scientists, they're insane. These guys are clearly insane. Please, in astrology, no.
Yeah.
And in the bureaucracy, when it comes to, they got to fill this form in name, the wizard, and they hate it so much. So I mean, this is good. Get everyone really upset about it all.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you've demonstrated through the years of being the wizard, you're very good at upsetting people.
Yeah,
You're very good at
not for harm.
Not for
just
harm,
because
of course.
they've been bullies.
Yeah.
And I'm pushing back a bit.
Yeah.
So if there's any record of them doing any harm, they'd have brought it out years ago. Did you know all other newspapers? Oh, scandal, wizard, this, that, and the other.
What about you, do you think, follows kind of the archetype of a traditional wizard, and where do you feel like you vary?
Well, I can't do it much because it's been set by the Arthurian legends, I think, for most people. And in there, there's no sign of his awareness that he's got to be very careful of women. He gets done by one, of course, but there's no mention of that. It's the important thing to learn. In fact, he destroys Arthur by giving him the woman he wants.
Yeah.
He makes him lie and appear as a husband. Now, that's disgusting. It's vile. So that's a bad act to start with. And then, of course, the Morgan Le Fay knows about this and goes for Merlin. So that would be where I'd criticise it. But the idea of wizards are like druids. The threesome, all my stuff's based on threes, triads. It's also a bit like the shamans of the Northern Hemisphere. They don't seem to be like in the Southern Hemisphere. The shaman, they've got their drums. And the drum beating and the dancing gets them to an ecstatic state. But not through drugs. I'm very suspicious of drugs. It may well be that the first agricultural revolution took place in Kopeti Tepe, that place in Turkey, because they were brewing beer. They were making bread or something from the wheat, from the grasses. Never done before. 6,000 or 8,000 years ago, they began to settle down, and not permanently. They began to go to this one place where they'd all feast on wonderful food. Like they used to go to Stonehenge. Everywhere, Hebrides, they all went to this one place. That was a real pilgrimage. And they'd bring the food with them and so on. But it looks as though that's where they may have had these big troughs, which were made out of stone, which the archaeologists looked at what was on the surface of the stone. It looks like the residue of some sort of ale. And that could be the downfall of mankind. The fact that you can have fun getting drunk. Who knows? That's one of our theories. It wouldn't matter if you were somewhere safe to do it.
Yeah.
But in that big camp with all the sacred temples around you, and then the next is a few miles away, about 50 miles away, is the first known town.
Wow. Okay.
It's underground. It's tiny little, horrible little cells like an insect nest.
Yeah.
And for the first time, there are figures of females being painted. Before that, there were no only animals. There was no males or females. So if you can get the idea of a goddess. So I spent a hell of a lot of time dismantling people like the what's it called? The Brotherhood. The new one that Bill and Boris founded, something Brotherhood anyway, where they painted these lovely pictures of Ophelia drowning. Now these men are they've got colour back into our picture. They upset the dull world of important portraits with these romantic illustrations. And so they took the stories from these great traditional heaps and heaps of stories they could take them apart, and they began to paint these beautiful colours and flowers. But they had these women in them, and the women, it turns out, were pretty thick. They didn't have much intelligence, but they just liked to be looked at, and they had lovely hair. Not even pretty, but they were like objects. So they began to worship these cult objects, which is so that's why it all fell apart, I think. And there was even one smart woman who was treated very badly by them. But this was the brotherhood of these painters. That was one of our great movements. It's also the earlier movement in 1780 to about 1830, in which there's one fellow comes out, William Blake, who's very close to being a visionary. It occasionally happened. I'm not a visionary, but he would be able to see things which pushed him off the noble path of life. But he didn't want to form a cult, he didn't want to have any people following him, and he was very keen on his wife. So, but he was one of those things that pop out when civilization starts to weaken, cracks appear. Now, the whole idea of mechanical reproduction of goods and services and the huge amounts of lying to sell them, the salesmanship, creative psychology, particularly the whole subject really, that's led us to a situation which is very, very dangerous. Not just polluting the planet, millions of plastic bottles and God knows what else. Not to raise the temperature, but the actual pollution stuff. And visual pollution. That used to be this one would go out to the countryside, look over the hills and admire it, and there are these wind turbines. Not just hideously ugly and making noises and killing birds, but also they're toxic. So when they collapse in about 15 years' time, having made the owners rich, they'll poison the land too. And yet they're building more and more and more in the name of green, saving the world. No, you're destroying the bloody world. These ones in the sea, the whales are going crazy. So the whole of the green moon is the worst and most dangerous enemy of the world. They're the evil ones. They're the ones, the shepherds wearing the wolf's clothing.
Do you share the same opinion on like solar power?
No, it doesn't matter so much.
Okay.
It's so. And wind power, you have a little bit on your roof, have a little windmill there to bring the water up. They've been using wind power for centuries.
It's
And
just
water power too.
scaled too much, so now
The
it's
idea of these
obstructing.
gigantic things. But the big thing is you can't rely upon it. What's the point of an energy source that might suddenly stop and you have 3 weeks with no wind? You'll starve because the whole system breaks down. There's no plan B. You mustn't burn coal. But we're burning coal to charge the batteries for electric cars. Then their eyes go funny. These people are really stupid. But they want the money they get, and they'll be just like any other person. Don't question the guy who's on the make the lies. There's a salesman. This car's fine, so don't look to it. And that's the function of my Facebook page.
Yeah.
One is me showing off and all my things and all everyone I know. And I have got some of my females in my past. One was I didn't chase after her, but she got interested in me. She was an actress. She was about 18, about 21 at the time. She finally had enough with me and went off to England. And Michael Caine said she was the most beautiful woman in London. And he was a typist. So you can even have a remarkably beautiful woman suddenly drawn to. What the hell's going on? I don't care. But the main thing is that what I want is a woman who's intelligent, who can read books and I can discuss ideas with and work with. And also she must be romantic. She must be soggy, because my mother was like that. And that's why I love my mother so much. She was a complete soggy romantic from my father. It took years to catch him. I'll get married, dangerous. I'll live on my own, to be a bachelor and eat my cherry and play chess with my friends. No. But it's good. That was a good start. To have a mother and father one like the others. Anyway, don't you do all this stuff? There are so many questions, aren't there? Stories to tell.
Yeah, I mean, we only have a little bit of time left, so let me just... One of the things that I was very fascinated by is in the book you talk about from a young age you kind of decided to live your life in 7-year cycles. So I was curious about the reasoning behind that.
Wasn't any reason for it.
Okay. Okay. It was just felt right. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, because I read that and I was like, yeah, that does, something about that does kind of very resonate.
You'll find my numerology, I've got a proof that I chose the time and the place of my own birth. And the odds against that are thousands to one. It's in my other book, which is not printed anymore, The Nonsense Almanac. Now, if you look at this, you go, well, it's quite simple. You can prove it yourself. Just prove that you chose the time and place. You do the same thing. Take these numbers. Don't do any adding up and dividing. You have to do factor analysis, all the sins that occur. Now, it's all in the Phil publication. It was done to annoy fundamentalist Christians who proved the Bible was true using these techniques. But it turned out this guy, less enough numbers, had proved all this. It's absolutely outrageous. It's the inner space version. You're becoming the most important person on earth because you weren't born by chance. I thought it was, but no, apparently not. But what can I do with it? No one's going to believe me.
Yeah.
If I could prove I was born, how am I going to prove that? Neurology? That's going to work, isn't it? But it's fun again.
Yeah.
Imagine people trying to compete with me.
Yeah.
I can prove I was born. Okay, off you go.
Yeah.
Big competition every year. Results coming out. My two numbers are 7 and 12. That's all I use. And those two numbers are pretty good ones generally, 7 and 12.
Out of nothing I come, just to have fun. Into nothing I go at the end of the show, something that you wrote.
That wrote when I was very young. When I was about, I don't know, 30, I suppose. That would be my epitaph.
Do you feel like this does a good job of kind of encompassing who you are, who you have been?
No, because there's so much creative activities going on in between those two. The Alzheimer's battle. I mean, this sort of dodginess sensors, having the problem going. It's just been a long series of hilarious. The phone box war. That was incredible. For weeks it went on with this giant telecom taking on the wizard and his pension. And then they had to give up. Even they did went wrong on them, so they gave up. It was so funny. Just about the colour of phone boxes. No moral implication. It's the colour I don't like.
Yeah.
That's it. So, the colour? Yep, that's it. Sorry, I like the Here's the moral case. No moral case. I don't like it.
You have such a amazing record of kind of outlasting people. I have it here as well. In the end, the city council ceased trying to arrest and prosecute me for speaking out loud in Cathedral Square, made the area into a speaker's corner, and promoted me to a tourist attraction. You essentially outwilled.
In those days, yes, they were still human.
Yeah.
Now they become woke. They've got a brain that says, this is true, that's false. They haven't got any ability to compromise. It's gone. You cannot debate with a woke person anything.
Yeah.
You're either right or wrong. There's no, well, let's do a deal here. No deal. And that's why it can't be done anymore. Not a chance.
Do you think that makes it harder to have fun and make mischief now? Or just potentially there?
Yeah, because I like to have people join me. That's what my own now. I'm not sure the other people joining in and getting the fun along with me.
Yeah.
But even outside me, they are thinking that war now is a bad thing. No, it's not. It says in a message, are you a sadist or a masochist? If you're neither, then you should join the outside me. It's like children. I'm going to die. They all die on the garden. Oh, good fun.
Yeah.
But a masochist couldn't do that because they want someone to actually hurt them. They deflate them until they finally get what they want. Oh boy! And a lot of relationships like that between men and women, and even between men or between women, where one is hurting the other one, and that's what they want. But I don't want that to happen. Not interested in that. I like to have a fight back if I get a criticism, and I like debates too.
Yeah. What about debates and, because you're quite known for debating and shouting down the Christians in Cathedral Square, and so...
No, I didn't shout them down. I never went into their crowds. They came into my crowd.
They came into your crowd.
If I went to their crowd, it makes it important.
Interesting. Yeah.
They came to my crowd and would make comments, and I would then play with them a bit, tease them, and in the end there'd be laughter out of it. I never had to call the police. In 30 years of speaking in the square, to call the police to calm down a crowd, because I could do it very well. Just sit round this way. And again, when I finished my speeches, most commonly, because they were the days of the 1980s, I'd say, what do you think of it so far? And they all knew that the Malcolm Wise reply, rubbish. So they heard me say, what do you think of it? They shouted rubbish. They were all happy because we had fun. We didn't have to feel anything. Now, sometimes you need to achieve things if you're making something, certainly, but when it comes to expressing who you are, it's all about identity, really. And I'm a male who loves showing off. I'm an old male, so I'm cunning, and the young male should not attack me until they listen to me for quite a long time to make out where the loopholes are. I spent many years in outside the town of London, in Tower Hill, when I was in the office in London. And that's where the last speakers were in England. One what's his name? One of the late politicians. He learned his trade there too, and he used to listen to these guys. They did it so well. The way you deliver, the way you stand, and your disdain, And just sort of the idea of a public speaker it's like music. It's just like any other art form. Yeah.
How much of that do you feel like has kind of been given to you through the way you were brought up and your interactions, and how much of it have you kind of honed as a craft? How much of it have you practiced as an art
Well,
form?
things went wrong for me quite early on because although I went to a good public school for a short time, after the war, went back to the southern suburbs, I now found out I could have gone to Dulwich College because there was an opening to people from this other school, but no one applied. Didn't know one applied on my behalf. So I went to the local grammar school, and I was hated by the headmaster. He and I, we only went to the second-hand bookshop. No other kid in the school was interested in second-hand books except the headmaster.
Yeah.
But he hated me. It's the weirdest. He was paranoid, schizophrenic. He used to rattle his keys like cane using me. And he would take my papers out when I'm submitting. It was done sometimes. All my teachers hated my guts. And I was down at the bottom of the class, all the way up. And then they gave the school certificate. Well, I didn't know who it was. It just had a number. I got a fantastic 7 credits. They didn't know. They thought they got rid of them. Because I wanted to leave, but my parents, being school teachers, sorry, but I've never tried to make me stay. But that's when I began to develop a more scholarly approach to life. But really, that crap teaching was so bad. Once you can read, what do you need a teacher for unless you're learning a skill? Just read what you feel like. That's reading Dante and Milton, all the wrong things, you know. But I'm not that clever, but I'm clever than most. The up here are so clever, they amaze you, but they've got no common sense. Quite often their emotions are shot too, so I'd rather be balanced and fairly clever enough.
Yeah, I feel like that's quite a... That's what I've kind of experienced with the world as well. As we were talking about before with Trump and kind of other high achievers, they're so great at certain things that they can feel, almost alien in other ways because there's almost this imbalance of, this precision to make deals or and have this skill set, and then
the Abraham Accords, you've got peace deals, and they still hate him.
Yeah.
And they gave Obama a Nobel Peace Prize for first day in office, and he started wars everywhere.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. Mind you, the Liberal Party is destroying itself now. The hate has reached a point where it's no longer useful. It's just tearing to each other, and it's going to be terrible.
Do you feel like people like that, much like yourself, kind of enjoy the fact that they're stirring up a bit of trouble?
Well, what they did to us in 1945, when they joined with Russia, they destroyed the empire that stood up to Hitler. Now, we know now that FDR did not want to declare war on Germany at all. If Germany and Britain all fund each other, you both go broke. But who gets rich? Like the First World War. America! Economic comes first, not honour, not truth. So that was what happened. Then the damn Hitler declared war on America, and no one knows why he did. It was a terrible idea. It came in on our side. Shit. So he changed the name of the war to United Nations versus Hitler. It was British Empire versus Hitler, but they hate the empire so much, we have to change the name to United Nations. But you included a communist state in that way. So, what do you mean by this? And after the war, just 2 people. America built another building, had all the controls, but Russia was given the veto, so there's no point in doing it. If you give the veto, because couldn't stop. So what the United Nations done? They won war, the war in Korea. That was actually United Nations war. They had no income, no tax base. They got no army. So what the hell are they doing as war policemen? What you get is a series of little bureaucrats being bribed and got rid of a no country or sent to the United Nations. That was absolutely terrible. The United Nations was a terrible failure. And then they came out in the open with the World Health Organization, what they did about the COVID thing. First of all, they said it wasn't infectious. What? And that's where they let all the Chinese go all over the world New Year's Day. Then they said, it's so infectious, you can't go near anybody else, you're locked away in your house. What? But my mother's dying. It's so infectious, Lies after lie. Then we've got the wonderful vaccine here. The death rate has gone up quite a bit because of the United Nations Health Organization. They actually made the death rate go up. It's never happened, not happened before. So we've seen a bunch of scoundrels and crooks posing as these very important bureaucrats take over the bloody world. Now, Trump wanted to pull out the United Nations, I realised that, but he couldn't. But he fell for the magic vaccine thing. He believed the magic bullet thing. It's suspicious, but he should have been looking more closely to what the experts were saying. This is not trustworthy. Didn't do the right tests. You're introducing genetic manipulations of the cell. What the hell's that about? Not the word. This is how I got it. Schwab is a wizard. He was doing exercises in Davos, in catastrophes. One of which was the world pandemic. And it's the end of the world by sea level rises and heat. But long before it became profitable, he said he worked out how he could do it. The training camps. His stooges were there. Young global leader. Oh, I'm a young global leader. Oh, who are you? Nobody. Someone like Helen Clark. Plucks them. So it's been a catastrophe now. I hope everyone stopped voting by now. It's time to realise that that's not the way now. The way is to discredit the entire intellectual classes, universities, to discredit the bureaucrats and the officers, and to make your own life as you can. Grow your own veggies, have friends, become real revolutionaries, drop out of the whole bloody thing, but don't stop thinking and reading and arguing. That's the critical part. And also, practical jokes work really well. Anybody that's coming at you, all right, let's go back to the hunter-gatherers. They had to deal with some very frightening animals, really big, dangerous animals, and they've got no teeth, they've got no protective devices. So what do? They dig a big pit, put some sticks across, a few leaves, down. That's how we do it. And also martial arts. That you use your enemy's hatred against him. Bang. Now we've learned enough to do this thing now. But I think we're going to need the idea of forgiving your enemies. The Christian thing will get us through to the next stage of it. But when we stop believing that we're meant to be immortal, we'll be all right.
Yeah.
Why not be immortal? Because my ego is so important I can't possibly afford to die and be forgotten. Oh, perish the thought.
It seems. Yes, that's such an interesting framing of it. Yeah, it's so inherently selfish and narcissistic.
The first person not to believe in anything, I think that could be very strange. I don't know why it happened to why me, I don't know. But to find the whole thing, the idea of being forgotten is really a wonderful way to go. But I don't want to die. It's different. Failure, I've died. No, good. But he died, yeah, to him. Oh, yeah, you did. Of course he did, yeah. He went to heaven, yeah. You just see him go. And to make the whole thing into a great joke by turning the universe inside out, it can be done. It's a perfectly good model. So to go through and you might pass through to heaven the way through, where there might be a jade emperor and some goddesses and do the monkey things. I love monkey. And nearly all the Chinese peasants love King Monkey. And he's just like me, King Monkey, a real pest who loves a good fight and who doesn't get caught up in these others, but Buddha gets him in the end. But in the TV series, I love, Buddha was played by a woman, and that's perfect. Buddha was like a woman.
And you were born in the Chinese New Year of the monkey, right?
Yes,
I remember that.
Monkey,
yeah.
There's lots of things in my life that come together.
Yeah.
Huge amounts of information. So I'm able to resist it. But right now, I want to know. But I'm a result of that many weird coincidences, which I did not want to think that should happen, but I can't about it. But you think, why would no one in the Western world be interested in the fact that a wizard turned up, who did these things, who's got a lot of theories about cosmology, tries to get on the internet, and there's no interest. You think, get away, big up. It must be interesting. No, they'd rather have Chapet Chula doing stuff or some second-rate guru, I'm against ego. And then the guy's sitting there, and they're all looking at him with little brown eyes, and he's discussing how bad ego is. Help! Oh, dude.
Well, I think we're just about time.
Yeah,
so the kind of final episode that I ask everyone who comes on the show, because I'm still quite new at this, I want to get better. What is something as a great public speaker, a debater, someone who's had a lot of conversations, has done a lot of thinking, what is something that do you feel like I could do in future episodes that could enhance the conversation, enhance the interview, enhance the connection, something that maybe you would have preferred that I had tackled?
What I need is you to find someone who does not like what I'm doing, who thinks I'm wrong. I need an attack.
Yeah, okay.
Like in the square, it wasn't until someone attacked me that I could need crowds.
Yeah.
The Bible lady, she came to stop me speaking. That's all she came there for. She said I was a sexist, a racist, I was evil, an anti-Christian, all that stuff. And that didn't work, so she came next to me to play her violin so I couldn't be heard. That's her hate. It was so strong. It brought her right to me. Just perfect. I could just use that so well. I got her so angry, she'd strike me with her violin bow, and I'd forgive her because I'm a Christian. It was just perfect. The crowd just loved it. Double the size of my crowd. I need someone to attack me.
Yeah.
Somebody. I've been cancelled everywhere. No one will say why.
Yeah, because cancelling, it's not even an attack, it's a silencing.
They take away your career, your reputation, your friends, any income you had, and then the words start going around that you did something wrong. They always say, what did I do wrong? What is it? Just, we don't discuss this. It's weird, isn't it? It's so evil. I love debates because we can be wrong, and I admit it. Well, science is based on being wrong. And quite frankly, I had some wrong ideas when I was young. But you believed in that Plato stuff. My God, the baby farms, the Colosseum, I believed in that stuff. But I was 15 at the time, 16, so you're terribly sure of these things then.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Look at these stupid adults. If I ran the world, I'd do better than them. Yeah. It's like saying for me, that's the end of that point. Remember when I said, I'd had enough here, been here 50 years. I couldn't be invited to speak at any school or any club because I was just not, they wouldn't say why, but no one invited me. With a record of, since 1970, being the icon of Croatia, everyone knows I'm the most famous person in the town.
Yes.
The elephant in the room.
Yeah, objectively.
So I used to be outside the cathedral. I worked and I'd love to get to say the cathedral knocked down by the bishop. About 10 people did everything we could and finally saved the bishop from knocking down our cathedral. It wasn't badly damaged. What a battle. Did we get any thanks for it? No, they all come on. Yeah, it should have been saved. Yeah, all do it now. And then the idea that I've had enough. When they say I'm a bad influence, sort of saying the council, I'm going to stand for me. That'll make a difference. The most famous person in the town, known to speak really well in oratory, work up the crowd's emotions, best known name, best speaker, but not left wing or right wing. I'm not a capitalist or socialist, but what are you? I'm a romantic. I'm like the Lincoln people that founded Christchurch. They were leaving the industrial Europe to come here to start a better world, better life. The housing business here was so well done. And I said, at least I'll get some coverage and we can argue this. I know a lot of people to my past days, not a single reporter or a journalist would even mention that I was standing. Wow. Not one. And a whole lot. Radio, television, all these places, not one. And I had no money either. I hadn't started money since 1970s or so. My income's gone like that, from being reasonably well to zero for the last many years. So I'm the victim here. But I don't like being a victim, so if I do, you start thinking, well, there is one place I can go to, and that's the Facebook pages. So let's see what happens there. Well, I've been settled around, I know I am. I know the number of comments aren't being shown, but I don't mind. As long as I get those things up there and put myself up there, people can get it if they want to. That's all that's left now. Until someone will stand up on my side and support me. And nobody will do that. Nobody. I've got to I send messages, no reply. Free speech. No one has done more than I've done with free speech. I spent in Cathedral Square for 30 years defying bans on free speech. Nobody else was doing that. You can have free speech in the university, of course you can, or the club, but you try to in the pub. And the whole point is it's free speech in the public square. That's the definition.
In the public square, yeah, literally in the public square.
In the public square, you're exposed to everybody.
Yeah.
No goons or anything else. And that's what I did, and it lasted all those years. Not a mention ever did that now. The new Free Speech Union is meeting this weekend. They're going to get together and say, this guy is really keen on free speech, and they'll ignore me now. Nothing to see here, it's not there.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't serious enough for them. If only I could be serious. God, it's so hard.
It is hard. It's boring.
It's boring, and also it puts people off. Especially the female. My female, my love slave, I call her sometimes, she would not like it if I got serious. Oh, she got serious all the time. That's how she's allowed to. So that's what being serious. What does it mean, being serious? I don't really know. It means you're so, I think you become divine or something like that. This is so important and no longer subject to normal rules of debate and argument. Well, I hope you like the picture of this new one and this design, but it's strange. It's like a manual. This is almost a manual.
Yeah, it's such a good build. Yeah, do you want to let people know where they can grab a copy and hear more from you?
No, I've been still doing that. I'd love to find a bookshop with some of the stuff. No bookshop. No one will touch my stuff.
Well, where can they come find you if they want to?
Well, outside the art centre most days. Yep. And also that little caravan, the Custard Square Caravan. It's a bookshop. Lovely bookshop. Great people, old timers, but they can't. Unless there's a big demand for books like this, they are doing all their books at $5 each for them. Wonderful books. So they're working a wonderful job of being the best library come bookshop in the Christchurch. This is what I found in 1972 in Melbourne. Now, who on earth would launch a political party based on British imperialism in Australia? Didn't charge at the door because we had entertainments on. Such as a band which play on people's limbs, false arms and legs, and they'd be putting holes in, so they had a sort of artificial limb drawn. My mother was there wearing a big hat, and we had extra verses to the Vicar of Bray, how you always compromise if you're in the church, so how you do it. So this was, it's all policies are there, policy taxation. So now it's almost 60 years I've been saying taxation is theft. Only in times of a real crisis, like war, do you ever have to do that. But think of the growth, it's like a terrible mole that's grown over everything, and the idiocy of the people. But I'm waiting about the shift because I think the wheels are going to fall off for the king. Economically, it's unsustainable. And of course, the whole idea of the war between the nations breaking out, maybe it'll even stop the internet, who knows. But the voice cuts won't mind too much. No, thank God.
Well, that's us. Thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate your time.
Yeah.